Hey, super awesome that you're here to hang out with me. I really appreciate you. And since some of you might still be in university or might just have started your career, I thought it might be interesting for you to hear what the staffing in a typical data-centered product project is and what the most time gets spent on, at least based on my experience. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Johannes Frey, but you can simply call me Joe, and I've been working as a software engineer for more than 15 years. And I'm here to share whatever I picked up along the way throughout my journey. So if you like what you hear, please consider hitting that subscribe button. That would really mean a lot to me. I will use a project that I worked on in the past as a reference for everything that I'm gonna say. The project was about building a recommendation system for a configurator. I'm not sure whether I'm actually allowed to say what the company was and what kind of configurator it was, so I'm gonna skip that for now. And yes, I know that there are also other types of data science projects around where it is more about for example, dashboarding or explorative projects. But for the sake of this video, I will stick with the project I mentioned earlier. And this project can be described as a product team for a data science-based product. The product in this case being the offering of recommendations for that specific configurator that I'm probably not allowed to talk about. When the project started, the staffing of the team was 2 data engineers who also did the infrastructure for everything and 2 data scientists. And I skip the management roles like product owners and so on, since I really want to focus on the technical side of things. And so the responsibilities were like the data scientists were responsible for coming up with good recommendation models and also specifying the target data format that will be needed for the model to be able to predict things and do its job, basically. And the 2 data engineers, where I actually was one of them, had the responsibility for coming up with the data processing pipeline to transform the raw data into format that is needed for the model, building the web service to serve the recommendations, and as well as creating all the infrastructure to run and monitor the whole project. And soon it was becoming kind of obvious that the staffing wasn't that reasonable for achieving the goals. There was always a bottleneck on the data engineering and DevOps side of things, whereas the data scientists at some point almost had nothing to do and were able to pick those nice to have but not really necessary tasks. And before I go on with my little story, a quick shameless plug to go completely nuts on that like button if you liked the video so far. So back to the story. Because of this imbalance of work, after some time, maybe, I'm not sure, like half a year or so, I can't remember that precise, the decision was made to get some more data engineers / DevOps people and to actually get rid of one of the 2 data scientists. So after about a year, since it took some time to find the right people, the new team was 1 data scientist and 4 data engineers / DevOps engineers. And I would say that this is kind of like the somewhat Goldilocks healthy ratio for a data science-oriented product team. Because what gets often forgotten when talking about those fancy things like data science, machine learning, is that after you have that prototype of your model, you also need to get it into production and you need to get it production ready. You really need to ensure that you have topics for the operational excellence covered, like resilience, monitoring, the ability to reason about the current state of your system, which can sometimes be achieved using versioning, high availability, and so on and so on. Those parts often get kind of like overlooked because they aren't as sexy as those super fancy machine learning models. And so even when people say that 80% of the time in data science is data preparation and only 20% is developing a machine learning model, I could also say that in terms of a data science-centric product, the same applies. Maybe 20% of the time it's coming up with the model and like all those fancy things. About 80% of the time is getting it production ready. Because, I mean, after coming up with the model, validating and prototyping it, there's nothing much to do for the data scientists besides refining and tinkering. And I know that this might not be true for example, research-based teams, But if you are working for a company where they have some budget for a specific product that kind of like solves a problem or like does a thing, it kind of is a thing. All the other things like building the pipelines, the processing code in a scalable fashion, building the infrastructure in a resilient and production ready way is then the job of the data engineers and the DevOps engineers. And this is really the grunt work that is really taking quite some time. Yeah, so I would really be interested in knowing whether you agree or disagree with me and whether you made other or different experiences or whether you share the same experiences with me. So don't hesitate to leave a comment down below. And so far, thanks for hanging out with me, and I really hope that you enjoyed my little story from the real world. And yeah, so see you in the next video.